Hey, what's going on? We want to welcome everyone back to the Platform Podcast with Brother Jay and Marcus Brown, bringing you that information, and so excited to be back with our audience. I hope everyone got out and voted yesterday. I was definitely blessed to have that experience, share that experience with my son Jalen. So, and definitely got to shout out my daughter Layla at Jackson State. Always on my mind. Love you, baby. But having said all that, we got to jump back in with Marcus Brown and what's been going on with this Blueprint 2030 KCPS plan and the meetings that you've been attending. You know, we dropped a video last week that has kind of made a difference already, and we're going to talk about that. But let's jump into the meetings and what's been going on, because you know, I haven't attended, but you know, I've been hearing through the grapevine, man, you've been making some noise. So talk to us about that.
Well, again, I wouldn't say that I've necessarily been making noise. Some people may see it that way, but you know, it is what it is. So at the beginning was very tense, and then it had its ebbs and flows throughout. And so, you know, in the midst of people wanting to be heard, it's very passionate. And so I was put in that position to where, you know, I have to let people talk and hear people talk. But, you know, a couple of times in these situations, you know, people wanted to cut me off just in the process of people being in the community, you know, sharing ideas. And it's like, how do we get to the point where we're supposed to have small groups? And then, you know, again, these facilitators is cutting folk off. So that was just that experience that I had at this last meeting where I was asking the school board officials a question, and I didn't interject in anybody else's questions, and they jumped right in and interjected themselves into my question.
Right.
Now, the only time that I jumped in to interject at any point was at the first meeting when district officials could not lay out the Blueprint 2030 plan.
And when you say they couldn't lay it out, because I imagine the room was full of emotion.
Some of those issues that you are naming, we deal with those issues now. It's not about closure. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to listen to the community.
It was full of emotion. This was when Central Alumni came out heavy to let the community know where they stood.
Okay.
Again, some people might look at the fact that, just a real quick sidebar, that you haven't seen Central Alumni out there, but they came and they let their presence be felt. So don't think that you just, because they didn't have the traction to be at all of these meetings like I did, that what you heard at those first three meetings from them, it went
that
by
they
the
just
wayside.
dropped it. Right. Don't think
they're
just good with it now.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, they couldn't even lay it out. And so I'm like, hey, wait a minute. How y'all gonna argue against something and you haven't even heard it? And so it was to the degree that after the meeting, you know, on my way out, people are asking me if I work for the schools, if I work for KCPS, or am I here filming for the school board? I'm like, no.
Right.
But again, I think everybody needs to be heard, and that's what I thought at the beginning.
Well, and I think, and so when I say you're making a lot of noise, clearly your presence has been felt, and I think you have to acknowledge that piece of it, that you know, sometimes unintentional or not, when you begin to question things that other folks aren't questioning, or things that a bureaucracy is just used to, you know, pushing past folks without someone asking these kind of questions, it can appear as you're agitating because you have the gall to even ask a question or to, you know, come with a different perspective.
Right. Well, you know, and that was what happened. You know, I could, just as you said, I come in, and then the first thing that the facilitator says is, "You're a troublemaker."
I mean, so, well, you know, that's good troublemakers.
And
okay.
then so, you know, she introduces herself, and she's like, yeah, I'm one of the contractors here to facilitate. Crazy thing. Anyway, but anyway,
yes.
I'm here, one of the contractors, not with MGT. And then so I'm like, well, who you with? And now we got a problem. Well, why you asking that? Like, well, I didn't ask. You the one put it out there.
Right.
But that was kind of the thing that set the stage with this particular person. And then I wound up in the same group with her facilitating again. And it was the same thing. I'm talking.
Right.
And you're trying to cut me out to the point where I said to the group, hey, if y'all want me to stop talking, I'll stop. Mm-hmm. They said, no, go ahead. Right. Because I'm saying this is the community process.
Absolutely. And I think that once again, when you talk about tone deafness and understanding that, you're going to have a public informational meeting that is talking about closing schools and then not be prepared for the emotional aspect of it.
Right.
Or the fact that you're going to have public information meetings and then not be prepared to answer some very specific questions. Some you would think that you would anticipate because you've done this many times over. Right. And that's also a part of the frustration.
Exactly. So like, for example, I got on my robotic shirt today. I may get into some of that, this evening, but so I'm asking questions about Lego League. Again, simple. How many Lego League teams are there? I asked this, a few meetings ago, and this is another problem with the process. For whatever reason, they're not reporting back. They never reported back what happened at the previous meetings in the community groups, in the breakout groups. Mm-hmm. So at bare minimum, you could say, hey, these were some things that were discussed. So maybe you get some different answers, or maybe you spawn some thought, get some meat on the bone of some things that took place before. Mm-hmm. Nothing like that. So I guess they're waiting on again to do a board.
Like a readout.
Mm-hmm. And again, the one that they did at the last board meeting did not paled in comparison to what I saw on the ground. What they said is, it was a nice, neat synopsis. Nothing about that heat that they was getting at the beginning.
Right. Well, and I think, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to cut your point off.
Yeah, but I took a detour.
Well, but then the other part of it is because, once again, when we're talking about Blueprint 2030, which really is a continuation of, previous plans. And one of the things that I think, you mentioned that kind of stood out was the fact that when we're talking about repurposing buildings, and if we're going to talk about moving forward, how do you move forward without understanding the history? Right. And so and this is recent history. We're talking about just going back to 2016.
Right.
And so when we talk about repurposing buildings, it's like, okay, well, let's go look back at what you said you were going to do in 2016 with these buildings, and Satchel Paige came up. Right. And so talk to us about that process.
Well, yeah, and again, and that speaks to the video piece, that we dropped on the platform over the weekend. And again, just basic research. If you saying, hey, I got a blueprint for you. Mm-hmm. I got a strategic plan for you. Well, okay, great. Well, let me look at your previous strategic plans and see, how those worked out. So I looked at the 18 to 23 plan, and I looked at the 2016 plan and some other information all the way back to 2010. But I parked there, specifically because those 2016 plans had 2 schools in it that had, ideas of being repurposed.
Right.
And so, again, let's see what you're doing with the projects that you plan to do something with in the past. And I didn't, another thing at the community meeting, one of the folks wanted to, said, well, what y'all doing with Robeson? Mm-hmm. And their answer was, well, we sold that.
That's not our issue any longer.
Ain't, never mind that you created and moved the earth to make that thing be an eyesore that it is, but no responsibility on how you move an earth. And so, again, I didn't want to just be like, well, I'm just saying random stuff in the dark. So, again, let's see what the plan you have for this building was. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I went onto the campus just to see. I didn't go expecting to see, abandoned cars. Mm-hmm. I didn't go expecting to see, stuff strewn in the foyer and in the vestibule.
And I do because you're painting a picture of what it looks like, but where folks can actually go on YouTube and see the video, and that's the thing for me.
Right. Well, we'll relink it in this post. And again, just because we're not fully dressed right now, it's the platform.
Right.
It's residing on my YouTube page, just Marcus Brown, or you can go do a search for why did KCPS close Satchel Paige. So can't wait till we're fully dressed.
Right.
But black tie.
But I just want to put that out there because I think that, like I said, it's one thing to hear about it, and even while we were discussing it, and then when you came with the video, and for me to see it, and I know, like I said, how affecting it was just to see it, and so want to make sure that as many eyes are on that as possible. Right. But then back to the video, I kind of want you to lay out the time frame of when you shot the video, when you dropped the video, and now the response to the video. Okay.
Right. So again, I shot the video. I went out like early October. Early October. Oh wow, time is flying.
Right.
So I went out about 3.5 weeks ago on the weekend. So I guess it was about maybe 4 weeks. And so I went out and I saw it and was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. Just riding. Scouted it, saw it, came back a week later and got the footage. Then came back a week later just to check on it and took a few more pictures. So we're about 3 weeks in. And then took another couple weeks before I even edited the footage. So about, no, not a couple weeks. So about 4 weeks total. 3.5 weeks.
From the time you shot it to where you edited it.
Yeah.
Right. And then you just put it out. You just put it out last week. Saturday. Yeah. And so by Tuesday,
yes.
What happened?
By Tuesday, lo and behold, the van and the truck were gone. The van and the truck were gone off the site. And so what was interesting, when I roll up on the site to see, and it's like, wow,
okay,
this is gonna spawn our next segment called "Camera with the Cause." We're working with that name.
Okay, because man, that camera moves mountains apparently.
Yeah, it did, and so there was actually a maintenance person there working, and then he sees me. I'm just out with my camera. I mean, my phone. I didn't even break out all the equipment, right?
Right.
And he jumps on the phone. It's like, hey, yeah, there's a guy out here with a camera. And it's like, well, again, if you were working in the building, that wouldn't even be an issue.
At all. And
it brings a lot of questions too.
Absolutely, because like you said, you're talking about you shot this in early October, and then miraculously on November 8th, someone is out there cleaning up. And I would find it hard to believe that was the original plan was to wait until November 8th to send someone out there. So clearly the video had an impact, which is good. But then the brings a host of other issues along with the response.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Right. One of the big ones that sticks out to me is this issue of deferred maintenance. Right?
Yes.
When we look at these profiles, these school profiles, these numbers of deferred maintenance are in the millions. Now, again, how much of this? Well, first off, one of the things that you mentioned in pre-production was the fact that who's really walking through it? All right, $2 here, $1,500. Or how do you do all of these calculations and then get to $6 million? Get to $3.5 million, get to $14 million. But more importantly, now that we see that you were able to take such swift action in a short period of time, how much of this deferred maintenance is based off of just not taking care?
Right, and the fact that what for me was just troubling is clearly you had the resources for this to not be an eyesore in the first place.
Or a hazard for children.
Because
clearly, I'm going to tell you, me and my brother was little. There's 100% sure we would have been playing in those vehicles.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's what kids do. And in these days and times, with transients and folks looking for places to sleep and things of that nature, right. I mean, there's just a whole host of issues with that. And we're
making the assumption that those vehicles didn't work.
And that too. But the fact that someone just said abandon them there, You know, don't worry about what it looks like. You know, no one's going to notice. And then the fact that when someone does notice, you get it fixed just like that.
Right.
And so to me, like you said, it's just an indicator once more of how these bureaucracies, they don't care.
Right.
You know, until there's probably or possibly a public perception problem, as opposed to dealing with the reality.
Right. Well, and again, man, you just made me think about how I hear, you know, school board officials and a couple of board members talking about this thing as a marketing problem. Well, you know, hey, this could very well be a marketing problem. Maybe we need to market more about what's happening,
right?
And then we'll get things done.
And then also for me is who is really looking out for our tax dollars, because at the end of the day, this is not private funding,
right?
You know, and I'm assuming there's a maintenance crew and there are folks that have jobs that are supposed to do things like this,
right? And
the fact that once again it was ignored until there were eyes put on it is a problem.
Yeah.
And unless these problems or these Band-Aids are ripped off and we can really start looking at these issues from a very basic standpoint, they're just going to continue. And that's, what we really need to deal with and what we're going to deal with.
Absolutely. And again, it's the idea of stewardship, as we stated.
Absolutely.
Again, you want us to say, hey, pass a bond and be responsible for education for another 5 years or, through 2030. Mm-hmm. And this is how you treated what you guys did in 2016. Again, going back to the school meeting, when I posed the question to the school board, to the buildings manager, Jesse Lang, I think his name is. Mm-hmm. I know his first name is Jesse. I said, hey, so what's going on with Satchel Paige? And he, states that, hey, it was being used by our maintenance. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. So your maintenance left vehicles, left stuff in the front hallway. Okay, right. So
absolutely.
Great. I'm glad it wasn't the teachers.
Right. Exactly. That makes me feel better.
That makes me feel 1,000% better. It wasn't the teachers that left this stuff there. But again, the blueprint said that this was to be an early learning program and have community partners in there that aligned with that mission.
Right.
So, you deviated from that plan. Then you deviated from maintenance using it to whatever we have right now that the building is being used for or not being used for. Mm-hmm. And again, the other question that I asked was, why is there no, it doesn't say Satchel Paige was opened as a magnet school in such and such a year, as a classical Greek magnet school, whatever. It doesn't say when it was closed, when it was, none of this stuff. That's just, that piece that I got about Satchel Paige was in the blueprint. And so again, it's not in the for sale buildings, it's not in the sold buildings, it's not as an open building or a closed building. So it's a ghost building.
Right. And was this a part of the, work that MGT did? Because the way that they presented it, when they pointed on the map and to make sure that everything was equitable, the way, what I would infer from it is that they looked at the entire district. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But the way that they presented it, it seemed like that would have been a part of what they looked at, not just the 10 to 12 buildings that they decided to close. You would have had to look at all of them.
Well, again, let's say that they did look at all of them. Mm-hmm. So that means, at what point did MGT walk through Page, before or after the vehicle?
Exactly.
And how much? Look at the deferred maintenance over there. Exactly. Ooh, that's some deferred maintenance there.
Right. Let's factor that in. Hold on. That's another.
Look at all that deferred.
Exactly. And so that's the thing where it's like. And I think these are all reasonable questions to ask.
Because again, in the board meeting when MGT presented, they were saying, well, we can save y'all money on toilet paper. So again, if we're looking at a pallet full of boxes full of filters, I'm not sure if those pallets contain filters or not.
Whatever.
But if we're looking at pallets full of supplies, and this guy's telling us, I could save y'all money on toilet paper by moving kids together in school, so you don't have less kids wiping their butt.
Right.
But anyway.
But we get the point. Like you said, it's all a bunch of, as they would say, fuzzy math. So
let's massage the numbers.
Exactly. And so and the sad thing about it is that, like I said, these are tax dollars that folks are building their wealth off of, all the while telling you we need smaller government.
Right. Again, we can create a situation where everyone is eating off of the education of our kids, but our kids.
Right.
We're talking about real estate here, and I was talking with one of my coworkers, and she was like, "Yeah, I looked up and I saw there's 35 schools sold or for sale within this thing." And so when we talk about this blueprint plan, and we see that again, everything with the buildings and the real estate piece is fleshed out. You got all kind of justifications for that, and I can't even get a simple number on how many teams you got. How many teams you gonna add?
Right. Right. Well, because all of those things come later in the plan.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's later on. We got to figure out how we can build these buildings first.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like you said, everybody's eating off the dollar except for the kids.
Right. So, again, there was a meme that I saw that spoke to colleges, and it said, are Division I schools really sports franchises with, school as a side hustle?
Right.
Now, is KCPS a real estate company with education as a little side hustle?
Right.
And so now that we're looking at this inventory and we're looking at, nothing says that you've given up on education like the selling of schools. Mm-hmm. And so,
right.
You've conceded. And so we have to ask ourselves that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, there's so much work and research to be done, because to me, I think that then you also have to look at these, consulting firms that come in and tell you to close schools, but then on the back end turn around and buy the real estate, to enrich their firm, which is smart business. You know what I'm saying? And in a capitalistic society where everything can be justified, by the dollar, it does make sense.
Right.
But is it right? And once again,
going to be right.
And once again, we're talking about education dollars. We're not talking about entertainment dollars. We're talking about education dollars that folks are enriching themselves on at our kids' expense.
Yeah, and just another thing. Going back to the, again, the whole crux of this is the Blueprint 2030 plan.
Yes.
That's the common thread here. So, as I'm looking back at my notes, another thing, just thinking about these community meetings in general and their lack of answering anything throughout, let me know that they didn't really want to hear anything. Excuse me. Because everything was one way. Oh, we're asking questions and then we're getting vague answers or not answers, or we're going to take that back and things of that nature. We're going to direct those to the right people. And so again, were you just checking boxes to say that you had community contact in this process, or you couldn't have really wanted community input because nothing that you did from meeting to meeting adjusted?
Well, and that is the corporate playbook. Mm-hmm. We're going to give a presentation. Let's focus on the positive things. We'll take feedback, but we really don't want feedback. We want you to focus on what you like about what we just told you first and foremost.
And that was the first question.
Yeah, and then
what excites you about this?
Exactly. And because we're about solutions. Yeah. Then if you get into a question and answer period, it's more so of, like you said, if someone can maybe parrot what they've said and maybe present it in a way where it sounds good, we're going to let you talk. Mm-hmm. But if you're questioning it, or you found the hole that we weren't anticipating somebody looking for, now it's time to move on.
Right.
And like I said, and that's what happens in corporate meetings all the time. Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing where, once again, when you don't have anyone that is asking just critical questions, that is just buying what is being sold lock, stock, and barrel.
So the first meeting, they had the proposal. I didn't go to the second meeting. Third meeting was online. Went to the fourth meeting. Mm-hmm. They have a different proposal.
Right.
Now I'm asking, like, because I'm trying to talk about the proposal in my group again, being the troublemaker that I am. I'm talking to, so I'm like, okay, yeah, just open your thing to page 5 and you'll see what I'm talking about. Then they open to page 5 and there's not the same information,
right?
And so now we can't make things align because again, I'm trying to refer to some stuff in the 18 to 23 plan that's similar to stuff in the Blueprint 2030. And so now we can't even have a common conversation. Now I asked, well, why did the proposal change? We wanted to shorten the presentation.
Right.
Again, now is this a proposal or a presentation? Are you really asking for our input? Or are you presenting something? So now again, you can change the presentation. You don't shorten the proposal.
Right.
The proposal stays what it is, but you just don't say everything on every page. So again, just, I don't know if it was disingenuous. I don't know what the deal was, but why did this portion of the academic plan change?
Well, because once again, back to the point you made a few minutes ago of this is just the way in which you check a box. And so we can say we've had an additional 12,000 touch points with the community by having these public meetings. And so then when we look back and they go ahead and do what they want to do, they can say, well, we did talk to the public about it. We sat down, we had box lunches, we dug in, we had breakout sessions, and we really listened to the community. And so that's what you do. So that's just, it's not about really give and take or engagement.
There was no give and take.
No, and like you said, and not real engagement, because once again, how do you misread the room as badly as you do if you're really trying to engage with a community? And so this is that corporate playbook of, we're going to be able to present it in this way. Like I said, we're going to get the black guy to come in to deal with the emotional aspect of it. We're going to talk about the nuts and bolts. We're going to make it a little funny. The 90s is actually a long, long time ago when you look at it from a human being standpoint. But I'm not a building. And yes, a building should not be raggedy, and especially when at the time that you built it,
it's always given the fact that it's always been occupied.
Well, and the fact that when you built it, like I said, this was one of the most expensively built high schools at the time, and the contractors got real money. And so, but back to your larger point of, I don't think it's about really engaging with the community. It's about, we can check this box off and say, like we did in 2016, like we did in whenever, these previous plans, we did at least talk to the community.
Yeah. I'm just trying to read through my notes and make sure that I'm not missing anything here, man. Again, that was the other thing that I wanted to say, because I talk with a lot of folks, about the idea of putting out this, as having this video on the platform, and it was not like, man, I'm coming out, I want to create a hit piece. I created some questions. I thought they got ran up the flagpole to the right people. And so, I even waited a week to see if I'd hear anything. And, I didn't hear anything. And so it's like, man, well, I'm just pointing out what I saw. And so, but it does feel like a hit piece, but I wasn't trying to do a hit piece. So let me be clear.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, anyone who objectively looks at it, it's just presenting what was there.
Yeah.
It's not like there was a bunch of derogatory commentary or, casting aspersions on any individual or anything like that. You presented what was there. So, once again, like I said, it's a matter of sometimes just asking a question can be agitating.
Well, yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what the question is. It's just the mere fact that you're asking the question. And so that just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
But, I know the meetings are wrapped up. And so we'll be moving into this next phase. And so as we kind of get wrapped up here around the meetings and moving into that next phase, what is that going to look like?
Well, the next phase is they'll be presenting the plan to the board. Which one of these 3 scenarios we're not sure. We weren't able to gauge through all of these community events which one the board members, not the board members, the school district officials were leaning towards, happy with. They just presented all 3 of them to us and said, what do you like about them? And then I asked, what do you like about them? And
Right.
And again, that was another thing I could see throughout this process, that they're not excited about this process. Why y'all pushing it?
Right. Well, because that's a part of what you do.
I just run the play. That's all. I can't think out horse blinders on with it. And so again, let me stop. I'm gonna stop.
Well, but like you said, clearly there's this is an ongoing process, and we're going to continue to be a part of it, engage, and like I said, and ask questions, because the thing is, we all want what's best for the kids, and and what's best for the kids is what's best for the community, and for all of us who live here.